everyone, and good morning, and welcome to another narrator interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Maybe you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is a narrator making their official debut here on the show. Now, today's guest is a save-the-day superhero according to her clients. She holds a BS in Communication Studies in Theater and an MS in Communication Sciences and Disorders. With a background as a former speech-language pathologist and special project manager, she brings extensive experience across education, technology, healthcare, manufacturing, nonprofit, and the arts. She enjoys playing the long game, challenging the status quo, and using analogies to enhance communication. She has a fondness for stories featuring talented yet often overlooked characters who find each other and accomplish extraordinary things together. Now that you discovered her, she's ready to help create some magic. So without further ado, let's give a huge round of applause to our guest today, narrator Tiffany Vanlandingham. Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you here, Tiffany, on the show. And I have to say, when I first saw you pop up on my feed, because I think we follow the same kind of people, I was just blown away by your profile and your post and everything. It's like, okay, I got to reach out to this person because I'm very intrigued.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Tiffany. You're welcome. So before we dive into your background, as a little icebreaker question, is there a little known fact that maybe not a lot of people know about you?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Well, I'm just going to go with what pops up in my head. In my bio, you read, I have a master's in Communication Sciences and Disorders. And that basically means I have a master's in speech-language pathology. I didn't work as an SLP for very long. It is a very long story, but it's part of my origin story of being a narrator. But I went through graduate school, had some doubts along the way, but thought once I got out in the field that though they would all go away, and they didn't. So I ended up closing up shop, so to speak, and moving on, which wasn't the easiest thing to do because I invested a lot of time and money. But yeah, but I still have all of this background, things that I learned. I studied the voice and voice disorders as well, and voice health. So all of that education and training and experience, it's made me who I am today. It's just a part of many things. So I try not to see it as a loss, but just, I don't think of failures as being failures. I think of failures as being, we're collecting data on what doesn't work. And sometimes that's hard to stomach, like in my experience, but that didn't work for me. So, you got to put on a brave face and try something else. So that's what I did. And that's why I'm a voice actor now.
Nice. Very, very nice. And for our viewers, now just meeting you for the first time, Tiffany, what sort of genres do you narrate and voice act in?
Another great question. So as a voice actor, I started training in 2019. Like my bio said, I do have a background in as a stage actor. In voiceover in general, I was doing more like corporate type work as opposed to like commercial or video games, etc.
Okay.
I was doing mostly e-learning. And the beginning of, 2024, I was just unfulfilled and I was bored. I was just really bored. And I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I listened to a lot of voice acting podcasts. And I heard some people in the audiobook industry, producers and narrators, talking about audiobooks. And I thought, this sounds like it would be a really good fit for me. I had stayed away from it because I think in general, voice actors are afraid of audiobook narration because it's long form narration and it's a slog. It's a commitment. You know, they like the commercial voiceover where you can record and get it done within, 15 minutes to half an hour. And then you get paid really well for it instead of committing to, like a average 10-hour book. Anyway, so I took some foundational coursework with Atlanta Voiceover Studios with Kurt Bonham, just to get a feel for audiobook narration and what it entailed. And I loved it. So I went further and got some more in-depth training through a master class with David H. Lawrence XVI and his partner, and in production. And then I launched the end of 2024. And here I am today after about a year. And it's crazy. It's been a wild ride, so to speak.
That's amazing, Tiffany. That is amazing. Now, another question. From your bio again, that you have done a lot. Now, specifically on the arts aspect of you, what would you say definitively was your aha moment that really kind of pushed you into the world of theater and the arts, which eventually led to the world of narration and voice acting?
Gosh, another good question. I think I'm going to be saying that the whole interview. This is what, very reflective. Okay, well, I was a shy kid, creative kid, but a shy kid. And I was in my first play, not by choice. I was volunteered in elementary school. And then again, twice. And I don't know that I would have ever done it myself. Maybe I've had the courage. I mean, when you're a shy kid, the idea of getting up on stage in front of a whole audience isn't really something you dream about. But I had very good experiences, and I think I learned some things about myself. And then as a freshman in high school, I had a friend wrote me into being on the forensics team because she didn't want to do it by herself. And I started doing dramatic interpretation and poetry and prose. And I got a taste for acting. And then I auditioned for the fall play in my freshman year of high school. And all of the upperclassmen were telling me that I was going to get the lead. It was it's funny for a high school, but they did Cyrano de Bergerac.
Okay.
And the big movie is like Roxanne with Steve Martin. That's a really good one. And Daryl Hannah. But everyone was telling me I was going to get the lead, and which was kind of crazy. But I ended up getting the supporting female role, and that was it. So then I was a theater kid from that point on. And the forensics, this being on the speech team, that really helped build my comfort with, performing, I guess.
Awesome. Now let's actually go into the world of narration, voice acting, the behind the scenes sort of thing. So let's start at the very beginning. So going back to what you said, when you started taking classes and really kind of getting a feel of that world, what really surprised you about the world of narration and voice acting that you didn't know before?
Something that I didn't know before. Well, I don't know that there was a big reveal, but maybe more validation or so it's just a lot more accessible than what you think it might be. And I like the fact that my coach says the one reason she likes the audiobook industry is because for a narrator, it's very self-led. So you have your career in your own hands and you make your own choices. I mean, we don't traditionally work with agents or anything like that. So you are a true CEO, entrepreneur of your art, and you wear all the hats. So I think, yeah, just to summarize that again, it's accessible. It's accessible, and you can be, independent and be your own boss.
Fascinating. That's actually a very interesting perspective, Tiffany, that I never really considered. I've starting this year alone, I've interviewed a lot of narrators, all of whom have become like really good friends of mine. But I
Mhm.
don't think I've ever had a narrator bring about, this distinction between voice actors and narrators, whereas from what I'm understanding, voice actors, are agented. They're like the trad in the voice acting world, whereas narrators could be seen as the indies of the audio world in some regard, depending on how you look at it. But I never really had someone bring about that distinction, which honestly, there's a lot of things you can definitely pull back from just that one discussion alone. So thank you
Mhm.
for that. That really has me thinking a lot, and definitely I'll be asking a lot of my other narrator and voice actor friends about that. And also, speaking of voice acting and narration, I know talking with them, everyone has their own routine that they do to get them, ready to go into the recording booth for those long hours into the night, just recording and just making sure not saying too loud, especially if they have kids, so that we don't wake up their kids because they have to go to school the next day. So for you, Tiffany, what is your routine or ritual, or do you have a routine or ritual?
Well, I'm going to preface that by saying that I try to be very transparent, but I don't share a lot of this kind of stuff. I will if people ask me, but I'm neurodivergent. I have ADHD. So having routines and structure is not something that comes easily to us
Okay.
who are in the neurodivergent community. I can only speak as someone with ADHD, but it's actually something I am currently working on. I have some support trying to get some routines down, but the nature of narration and recording you're going to hear my dog in the background. I can't really get away from her. She has to be wherever I am. And if I close the door, then she's going to interrupt and want to come in and
No
by
problem.
scratching on the door.
Wouldn't be a Wandering Scribe podcast if there wasn't an animal involved, so you're all good.
Great. I love it. So just the nature of having a home recording studio, coupled with the fact that we're creatives, a lot of creatives don't necessarily have routines or structure. I mean, a lot of them do. We're all different, right? We're all individuals, but having your own studio, there are multiple factors that come into play in regards to whether or not you can actually do your work. And you can have a schedule. I'm going to go in the booth from 9 to noon in the morning, but if there's the landscapers are next door, or if it's in the winter and we just had a snow and everybody's out shoveling, or the trucks are going by. I mean, anything. If you're in an apartment, I have to, when I record, I have to turn off our refrigerator, and I have to adjust the HVAC so that I don't turn it off, but I have to adjust the thermostat so it doesn't come on, because my mic will pick up all of that.
Really?
Yeah. Fortunately, because we have to have our noise floor has to be, it can't be louder than 6 dB. So, yeah. So fortunately for me, that's usually all I have to do. But like I don't have kids, but my husband's home, if he has to, use the bathroom, like I've got pipes above me where my booth is. So the flushing of the water rushing, if he walks on the floor above me, I mean, these are things, if an airplane goes by, I have to stop recording. So all those little interruptions, I mean, you're constantly having to pivot, and so that's not for everyone. And then on top of all of the environmental noise potential challenges, are the challenges of the fact that we use our voices for our work.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I have allergies. I have to take a pill. I read 24-hour allergy med every day. In the fall, I got behind in production because the fall allergies were kicking my ass, and I'm allergic to grass, pollen, molds, everything. And you just kind of do what you can. You also have to worry about vocal tension and vocal fatigue.
Right.
So, so we don't have like a 9-to-5 type of job. And, it also, even just like having enough energy, like your body and getting enough sleep and all of that. So I always explain to the indie authors that I work with, I try to pad schedule and I try to explain to them, I'm a creative and I don't have like set 9-to-5 hours. So sometimes I'm working in the morning, the afternoon, late into the evening. I just, sometimes you just got to work when it's quiet, or when everything is in flow.
Nice. And speaking of indie authors, actually goes into our first fan question. One of my viewers asks, what was the first book or audiobook that you worked on as a narrator / voice actor?
Oh, that's a great question. So when you're starting out, well, I'll just speak for myself because everybody has their own story, but I brought all this background, which we've talked about, but I still didn't know what the hell I was doing. I mean, and I have this new mindset where I'm not going to get stuck in front end perfectionism where I have to have everything lined up before I start. So I literally jumped into this. And the first book I did was a memoir, actually. And it was like over a 14-hour to 16-hour long audiobook. Now, audiobooks are in general average around 10 hours, but so that's a long ass audiobook.
Yes.
And that was my first one. And it was with a publishing company, and I was taught a very hands-on collaborative production process. But with this publisher, they just basically wanted to shove it off to the narrator and just, here you go, you do it. But I worked out with my contact there that I could reach out to the author, and she was actually I'm in Wisconsin. She's a Wisconsin writer, which is one of the reasons I auditioned for this book. And it's a very challenging, difficult book because of the subject matter, but basically it's I think she's in her 70s now, but it was about her son was in the military, and he was killed on base in kind of an accident. That's kind of the question of the whole book. So that was a very challenging first book to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That is very, very interesting. And that kind of leads into the next fan question. Now, this is going to be referring to all the projects that you've been involved in your career. For all the projects that you've been involved in, how do you ensure that the characters are authentic to the world that they are presented in, while also showcasing their complexities?
I love that question so much. One of the reasons I love it is because I'm working with my I've been coaching and mentoring with Julie Wilson, who's the articulate coach. She's the head of casting for Penguin Random House Audio. She's a fabulous person and coach. I've been working with her for over a year on career strategy, branding, and whatnot. And that question is very timely because I'm redeveloping my bio with Julie, and because all of the personal branding and how I present myself online and to casting directors, it all stems from that bio. So the bio is like your introduction. So these are things that I've thought about. So I am a very instinctive actor. I had a friend and fellow like theater person. I was doing monologue work when I was doing stage acting, and he always talked about, are you an inside out actor or an outside in? And what that means to me is, if you're an outside in, that means when you start any kind of acting, theater performance, any kind of performance as an actor, do you need to sort of set the stage with all this external information? Like, you need to know, I don't know, you got to do a deep dive in the research of the character and the story and the relationships and their inner and outer life and just all of that. You got to do all of that like prep work beforehand.
Right.
So you need that external data in order to build your performance. Or are you an inside out? An inside out is, to me, it's going with your gut and your instincts. So I'm an inside out. So I don't need all of that. I don't need to do all of that. To me, that is, for me, it's a waste of time. And it actually takes me out of the story. All I need to do justice to the writer's story and characters is listen to the text. All of it is in their book. All of the cues. You just need to be a good listener and observer. And I don't know, I'm a very intuitive, empathetic person. I've always, people have always come to me when they need somebody to talk to. People have always told me I should be a therapist. Sometimes I understand what's going on with people without them even knowing themselves. And the reason I bring this up is because I bring all of these things into my work as an actor, work as a narrator. I rely on my instincts and my intuition, and they have never steered me wrong. And I love playing the emotional depth. And I think that's one of my strengths as a narrator. I like all the feelings, not just the happy feelings. I actually like all the really dark, challenging feelings. I like playing that space in between when you have a character and say the book is in first person, and outwardly to the other characters in the book, you know, they put on a mask, they have a front, so they have portraying outwardly, but then you are narrating their internal thoughts, and so that might be completely contradictory. So we're talking like darkness versus light, or passion versus restraint, or bravery, courage versus vulnerability. And I love playing in that space. And as the narrator, that's where I play the space in between. That's the depth. And so that's my approach to creating a performance. Again, it's always based on the cues from the text, the author's work, because I want to be true to the story.
Nice. And kind of following that, another great fan question, probably one of my favorite fan questions to ask narrators in particular. This question comes from a viewer who asks, same one, which is, in your career as a narrator and voice actor, what has been your favorite line of dialogue to record, and what has been the most difficult line of dialogue to record? Now, this can also include from a specific character or the prose itself.
That's a great question. Okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna answer that in a very creative, the first part in a very creative way. So, favorite lines of dialogue. Anything that is challenging. So oftentimes, and this is something narrators don't talk about, but and I want to be transparent. So I may start a project frequently and it's scary. I'm like, how the F am I gonna do this? Like I did a book where I had to do 8 different male voices for 8 different brothers. And as having a femboy, I'm a fem voice, that doing 8 males distinctively in the same family. I'm like, how the F am I going to do that? Like, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. And I just have to trust myself and I do it. So I would say when I'm able to voice a male, and for me, it's believable, and I'm my own judge. And if I can listen back to my work and forget that it's me, then I know I've done my job and I've hit the sweet spot. So like in that book, it's Eclipse by Kat Kinney. It was dual point of view, and I loved the dialogue for the male main character. I loved voicing August. So any of his dialogue, and he had a rare genetic disorder, so a lot of the dialogue would stem around that, and just being able to represent a character like that. And then, the hardest things are, let me see if I can pull this up. I sent this to Jessica, my assistant, last night. I was struggling with this bit of dialogue. Sometimes you're in a book and you're reading and you struggle with the craziest lines. So let me read this for you real quick. I deleted it, so now I got to go in here. All right, here it is. This is from an A.J. Rivers mystery romance I'm doing. For the life of me, I can't tell you why I could not say this line. Claire placed the ladder against the back wall that faced the shop and glanced over her shoulder for a moment. I just could not spit that out. Now you think about just that sentence. I've had authors say to me, "Oh, I'm sorry, I should think about the audiobook when I'm writing the book." And I'm like, no, you shouldn't. You shouldn't think about that. No. But this is some of the challenges we have. So you have Claire, CL, placed the ladder against the back wall, lots of L's, faced the shop and glanced over her shoulder for a moment. That's just like a mouthful that feels really heavy in the mouth. And I could not, last night, I could not get that out. And so if that happens, you got to slow down or do something different with like how you break up the sentence so that it still sounds believable, like you're speaking it and not reading it. I never want to sound like I'm reading a book at all.
Right.
I'm performing the book, and that's my style of narration. So that would be my favorite and my most challenging.
Ooh, okay. I like it. And now kind of more of a personal question, Tiffany, as there are going to be a few sprinkled throughout. So talking with a lot of narrators and authors on this show, there's just been this one question which I love hearing their thoughts on, and it is, what has been the family response? And I asked that question to all my guests because, for all of us creatives, there is this hesitancy to own what we are. There's been a lot of people I've had on the show that have been hesitant to own the title of I'm a narrator, or I'm an editor, or I'm an author. And sometimes they've only told their families when they've been successful on one project that they know it's going to, generate some form of capital. Others have just told them from the very, very beginning. And that kind of meshes in with this kind of sense of imposter syndrome and so forth of, are we going to be successful? So combining those two together, Tiffany, here is the question. When did you feel comfortable telling your friends and family that you were embarking on this journey of yours? And with, of course, imposter syndrome and anxiety that comes with being a creative, How do you handle that? And also, I like to call and add on to that the narrator's block, because there are going to be days where I've talked to a lot of narrators on the show where you don't want to narrate, or you can't remember that voice, or that line of dialogue just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack, and I love that you're asking that question. I think this is a really important topic to discuss. So hats off to you for asking the question.
Thank you.
I also want to preface this by saying, anyone out there that needs a pep talk, reach out to me and I will pep you up, because so when I started, it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable sharing that you want to do this with other people. It's not, because there will always be someone who tells you that's not going to work, or what do you like, how is that supposed to, they will question you in any possible way. People you don't even think would question you will question you. When you get started in this work, you have to do it for yourself. You have to embrace yourself as a creative and own it. And don't apologize for it. You don't need to explain yourself. And yeah, people will not understand. Personal experience. I love my husband. We've been married a long time, but he was trained as a businessman. He has an MBA. He worked as a marketing executive, and he was trained to look at the data. Whereas I've already explained, I'm all instinct and intuition. I mean, I look at data, but I lead with instinct and intuition. And when I already shared, went through graduate school with all that cost and all of that time, and basically said, I'm not doing this anymore. A very non-traditional thing to do. It took a long time for him to get on board. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know if he realizes now, but he was a barrier for a long time. Just because we lived together and always questioned. But I try not to take it personally, because that's just kind of who he is. He's very risk averse in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to careers. And, I would get, he would send me job notices, like for corporate jobs. And I'm like, I cannot go back to corporate. I cannot go and work under those lights with those people. Like, I have to work for myself. So, and it wasn't until I started making money, and I also took on some extra, like, part-time work. Like, I built a business for a while to earn money for my voiceover business. I've always worked with kids, so I'm like, what is some work where I can bring in some extra money that I can funnel right into my business, and I can get set up right away. I can get clients right away, and I don't need any kind of training. So I started advertising myself as I don't want to say babysitter, because I mean, I have a master's degree and I have child development coursework and everything, but like interim nanny kind of thing. And I got a few clients in my neighborhood, and I had them pay me what I felt I was worth. I wasn't cheap, no, like $10 or $15 an hour. And I did that for like a couple years. I still have 2 or 3 clients, but I don't work with them. Like, it's only every once in a while. But I think me doing that also kind of demonstrated to him that I was serious about, I was just committed.
Right.
And I was playing the long game. And it wasn't easy. It's not easy when you don't have a family member. When you have a family member that doesn't understand or support you. But now he does. He's like one of my biggest fans. He tells everybody he knows, like, what I do, how good I am. He listens to my auditions. He listens to my work. He gives me business advice. But so there's that. That's the family question. Now, what are the other one was imposter syndrome?
Dealing with imposter syndrome and what I like to call the narrator's block, meaning,
Okay.
dealing with like moments where, dialogue doesn't really flow or not in the right headspace, stuff like that.
Okay. Imposter syndrome. Maybe it's just where I'm at now. I think this came with my ADHD diagnosis. I'm done making excuses. I'm done being ashamed. I'm owning who I am. And I am an actor. I am a narrator. I am doing the work. If you are doing the work, whether you're a writer, a photographer, an artist, a graphic artist, if you are doing the work, you are that person. You are that role.
Right.
Period. And yeah, and I will argue that with anybody. Own it. Own it. Just embrace it. You're doing it for a reason because it's a part of you. Like us creatives, it's not easy. It's not easy being creative because, the world isn't necessarily set up for us. Like I just explained, not getting the support, a lot of the world, especially in this country, it's all about like money. Are you making money? If you are in a field where you're not making a lot of money, then you're not considered successful or whatever. Just ignore all of that. As long as you're making enough money to support yourself. I mean, we are creative, we're writers, we're actors, we're artists, because it's who we are. It's a part of us. And when I was doing corporate type work and I wasn't doing theater for a long time, I felt like I was losing my creative self. And I don't ever want to feel that way again. And it took a long time to get it back. So there's that. And then the last part is that narrator block. Sometimes you just have to know when to say, it's not working and step away. And then you make it up the next day. I'm still struggling with this. For the most part, I pick the projects I feel passionate about.
Right.
I've had that privilege where I take projects that I know that I'm going to want to get in the booth and do. I'm not saying I've never maybe been bored by, or things aren't hard. Sometimes the subject matter is difficult. When you just have to, again, like I talked about earlier, pivot. Again, we're creatives. It's not necessarily a 9 to 5. It's, or if the words just aren't coming out, slow down. Like I said in my example, I just slowed down. I am always looking for efficiency. We have to be efficient as narrators. Quality is my number one, but I have to be efficient too, because I'm on the clock and I'm getting paid per finished hour. And the more I do retake after retake after retake after retake, or go back and re-record a character because I didn't feel like I got it. I mean, you might do a lot of that when you're starting out, as you're learning about yourself and you're growing. And I'm not saying I never do that, but for the most part, you can read a line like 100 different ways. So when you're going back and you're doing pickups, you're just in the flow. Just it doesn't have to be perfect. We're human beings.
Right.
I mean, I want my narration to be dirty because I want it to be human. So if you don't hear a word, I don't need crispness. I don't need perfection. I don't need it to be like performative. I want it to be authentic and real. So as long as the message is getting across, if the word is, people have different ways that they speak. They have different affectations. So sometimes you don't quite understand every little word, but I want all that in my narration, the grit, the feeling, the emotion. Like if I'm in a scene and it's making me cry, you're gonna hear that in the narration, as long as the message and the author is still getting their words are still being communicated.
Very well said, Tiffany. Very well said.
Thank
And now we're actually going to go into what I call the reflective segment of the interview. And you kind of answer the next set of questions, but I'm actually going to combine them together into one very loaded question because I definitely think they definitely flow very nicely together. And
Okay.
that is, of course, what does it mean to be a narrator, a voice actor in the digital age? And I love asking this question to all of my guests because the industries, whether you are an author or a narrator or an editor, the industries for creatives has definitely changed. I mean, 20 years ago, the thought of being an indie author was unheard of. And now it's like one of the most dominant other versions of publication in the world. Same for narrators. Narrators were people from Broadway who are from radio who hone their craft. You still have that now, but in the last 20 years or so, you have new people from regular backgrounds who are very passionate about the theatrical arts and voice acting and narration, and they have started their own careers, and it's just insane. And now more than ever, social media is a must for creatives to build a platform, grow their brand, get followers, and so forth. But social media is very draining. It's a double-edged sword. It can allow us to connect with people, but also leaves us exposed to a lot of negativity. And also, especially for narrators, there's been this discussion or been this debate of, are we in a golden age or a dark age, specifically when it ties into the rise of AI narration? And a lot of my friends in the narration voice acting world have strong opinions of that and how it creates a false sense of creativity because AI narration mass produces creativity, but there's no heart behind it. So there has been this discussion. And it can be very overwhelming for anyone jumping into this industry on their own. So, with all that said, Tiffany, what has still disciplined you to still be the best narrator, voice actor you can be, and sticking true to your values, your beliefs as a creative in the digital age?
That's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking it. Um, this kind of just in a way came up in I have a narrator group that we all communicate on WhatsApp, just, throughout the day. It's, because we all are independent contractors, right? We all work on our own. So anyway, we're like employees and we can reach out anytime we want. But first of all, I was writing thoughts down as you were talking. It is intimidating. I mean, okay, so there are all these opportunities with technology, with social media, and I know it's intimidating. It was intimidating. I was intimidated. I still don't feel real comfortable putting my face out there, right? For the reasons everybody else is uncomfortable putting their face out there. Also, quite a few years ago, I had Bell's palsy. So I have some residual, like part of my face is paralyzed because I had a pretty severe form of Bell's palsy. That's where sorry, my words are not coming right now. That happens with ADHD. Okay, so the main nerve in your inner ear, it gets infected. It can be caused by stress. They don't really know. And basically what happens is the infection causes pressure, and that nerve gets crushed in the little bone that it is traveling through, and you get temporary paralysis on one side of your face. Now, usually that people recover within a few weeks, but there are some cases where it takes a few months, and some people are left with residual paralysis. So like my eyelid does not close strongly enough or quickly enough like it did originally. That side of like my forehead doesn't really move. And I have like a crooked smile. So anyway, so on top of just the usual, like being afraid of putting your face out there, I mean, I have to deal with that because it's not pretty. My face can look really weird sometimes. Also, yeah. So, but I had a friend just a little over, my friend Marissa, just a little over a year ago. She is like, you are talented, you need to be seen, and you need to be heard. And I think about that all of the time. And so I know putting yourself out there, like on social media, self-promotion, marketing, all of those words that we don't like, you have to do it on your own terms. So I just wrote notes about this morning because this came up in our group. You have to put it on your terms. So what are my terms? And these I think can be the positives of the digital age and social media. It's a platform where you can connect with other people, collaboration. It gives you visibility. You can be the most talented person in the country, but if people don't know you exist, you're only going to be sharing it with yourself or your small circle. And when I pivoted into narration, I'm like, I have a friend that tells me, as hokey as it sounds, but he tells me, you were born to do this. This is what you should be doing. And it took me all this time and all these training, all of these things to get to this point. So I am very passionate and very dedicated, and you have to be brave. So I put myself out there on social media. It's not comfortable. It gets better, but you have to embrace discomfort for growth. And the bottom line is, I want to be a narrator. I need listeners. I need people to listen to my work. I need to get cast by indie authors and casting directors for audiobook publishers and producers. And I can do cold reach outs, which I do. But it's a platform for you to share your art. And that's my approach. Those are on my terms. I love what I do. I want to share it with others. Just like a writer, you want to share it with your readers, your audience, or if you're a photographer or any kind of artist, any kind of creative. I think first and foremost, you need to create for yourself, because you may not always have an audience, especially at first. But you want to share it, and I want to share my work. So that is what I do. And it's accessible. That's another thing. It's accessible to anybody. But don't be scared of it. Don't be intimidated. It doesn't have to be perfect. Conduct experiments. I conduct experiments all the time. I throw it out there. I see how this lands. But more than anything, it's a platform for me to share. And as far as, AI goes, I'm not afraid of it because I know my value. I know the value of creators. I know the value of narrators and actors and writers and artists. And I'm not afraid of it. I mean, I think it has its purpose. The genie is out of the bottle. It's not going back in. I think it can be used for a tool. I use it as a tool. But I don't think it should be a replacement for creators. That's what I don't know. So I think as creative people in creative industries, creators, don't be afraid of it. You have to arm yourself with information. So like, go to if you're a voice actor or a narrator, NAVA, the National Association of Voice Actors, they advocate. They're advocating on Capitol Hill. They do webinars and things, and they explain how all of this works. And NAVA is not anti-AI. They are advocating for consent, control, and compensation as for our voices. We want to have control over whether someone's going to use our voice. We want to give our consent. And if we choose to engage in that, we want to be compensated for it. So
Absolutely. Very well said, Tiffany. Very, very well said. And now we're going into my favorite segment, the business side of being a narrator and a voice actor. As a little icebreaker question for this segment, this actual question actually was a fan question, but I love adding it to my roster of questions. And it is, looking back on your career thus far in terms of marketing yourself on social media, building your website, building your brand, is there anything you would have done differently?
No, because like I said, I'm experimenting. It's all an experiment. I try things. If it doesn't work, it's not a failure, it's data. I just pivot and I try something else. And you have to have that mindset. I think, I feel strongly you have to have that mindset. So in that regard, I'm on the path that I'm on. And yeah, sometimes I make choices and it turns out, like I've recently in the past week, I made a choice and it wasn't the right choice. And sometimes that does not feel good at all. And you feel like a loser. You have all these feelings about it. But that's part of learning. And I think where we're at, I feel like this is starting to shift a little bit, but we need to make mistakes and we need to make the wrong choices, because that's how we learn what the right choices are and what the right path is. And we should not be afraid of imperfection and screwing up or fucking up or failing or whatever, making mistakes. I know it's not comfortable. It's never going to be comfortable. I would love to never make a mistake ever again. But again, it's human, and that's how we learn and grow. So I know that I've made mistakes and things along the way, but it's made me who I am today in my business. So yeah, there's nothing I would go back and do again.
Nice. Very, very nice. And now another aspect of the business, almost like with authors, for narrators, is understanding one's audience. Because as with narrators, just like authors, we enjoy reading, we enjoy the arts, we enjoy everything, and we love reading and being part of storytelling that is naturally appealing to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine for narrators, when working on different projects, there is this kind of balancing act between wanting to showcase your authenticity, but also realizing there is an expectation people have when it comes to narrating certain books. Case in point, I actually had a friend on the show, I want to say yesterday. Yeah, it was most likely yesterday. And we were talking about the future of narration. And she brought to my attention how there's kind of this, I don't want to say caveat, but this notion that certain voices are only good for certain genres. One of her closest friends, who is well known in the romance fantasy world, she was told her voice is too low for romance genres.
Mm-hmm.
And this sparked a discussion in our episode about, do people only have a certain expectation, or do people only have like a certain voice they imagine when it comes to reading a certain book? Almost like in theater and film and TV shows, being typecast for a certain role, and you're only good for that role. So I digress. With that in mind, Tiffany, whenever you're working on a new project with a new author, How do you balance those two, your authenticity as a creative and narrator and voice actor, but also being mindful of the genre that you are narrating in?
Okay, can we pause a minute because my timer is going off on my oven downstairs because I forgot to turn it off and I need to run down because it's just going to keep ding, ding, ding. Do you mind?
Absolutely.
I'm
No,
so
no problem.
Hold on.
Oh, good.
Okay, to answer your question. Gosh, that is a really good question. I guess to me, authenticity is always number one. But whenever I do specifically an indie project, I request the manuscript in advance so that I can review it. Not only am I making sure I'm comfortable with the content, but I also want to make sure my voice is the right fit. So,
right.
I'm very realistic about what I can do and what I can't. So, like, there are some accents that I can do. I can usually throw an accent together for very minor roles, but I would never do a full an accent. Yeah, I just like, I think British people should do British characters, like main characters. I'm not going to voice a female main character who's British because I'm not British. And I can't do it justice. If I want to adopt like an audio book, like where I give it a flavor of like Dutch or German or whatever, and they're just a side character, then that's not an issue, but I don't want to misrepresent myself. So I'm always thinking about that. As far as like, I like hearing different voices for I don't like the whole stereotyping of genres. Like, I have a narrator friend who recently told me like she admired my voice because I have like that mid-range, and for a narrator, a female narrator, in some ways that's seen as me have like I can do the male characters more easily. That has a more like a female that has more of a like ingenue type voice. I mean, but I like hearing different. I like being surprised. I like hearing a different voice. Like, I would love to hear like a lower pitched female doing an ingenue, but it has to be believable because we're humans and we're all different, right?
Right.
But that's just me. Everybody's different. And as far as like genre, I don't really, the way I approach narration, like there's a lot of talk sometimes, like with training to be narration, like you have to consider the genre, like mystery thriller voice sounds different than like a fantasy voice than a rom-com or whatever. And I don't really subscribe to that. I'm more of, you're just performing the role in the story. It doesn't matter if it's a fantasy or a sci-fi. Like I don't have like a sci-fi voice. I don't have a rom-com voice. It's just you're in service of the book and the story. And what do you need to do for that character? So like I'm voicing a character now for a mystery romance, and she has a lighter, bubblier voice. Well, I don't have a light, bubbly voice, but I have a light, bubbly voice I can do that's still me, and it's still healthy for me to use that voice throughout the whole book. So I just lighten up my voice a little bit, but it's still always authentic to me. It's still always, even though, yeah, I mean, because we're voice actors, right? So I don't know if I answered your question, but.
Yeah, I think you actually did. I think you did. That, not every voice is going to be the same for every genre. There's no cookie cutter mold. It definitely does depend on the style of the book, because just because a book is in the thriller genre, as an example, it's not going to be the same voice for another book in a similar genre. It could be very, very different. It could be have an accent. It could be a little bit noir based. It could be a little bit more modern. So each one is going to be vastly different. And that also brings into the topic of the AI narration, as my friend and I talked about how that's why a lot of companies are using AI narration, just because they're able to program a voice to be exactly the way they want it to be, but you lose that authenticity to it.
It's easy. It's easy and it's
Yeah.
accessible, and it's efficient.
Yes.
You don't have to do a whole casting process, but it's also fatiguing to the listener. I mean, when you listen to it at first, it's like, oh my God, that sounds so real. But if you continue to listen, that's the thing. People don't continue to listen. Like AI voices can't do like suspense, and they can't do intimacy, and they can't do all of the nuances. There's no nuance there. There's just like a cadence that mimics a human voice. And even like the voice actor community, like thinks that a lot of the corporate voiceover is going to be taken over by AI. Like I said, I worked in e-learning. Okay, well, you can use an e-learning, or so you can use an AI voice for an e-learning module, but what is the objective of that e-learning module? You're trying to teach somebody something. So you want them engaged. You want to capture their attention. You want them to listen through whatever kind of training you're disseminating. And oftentimes it's like, important stuff like sexual harassment, or the whole computer sales system is changing, or I don't know. I mean, you're trying to teach something, and they have to conduct surveys at the end. Anyway, I mean, there's research out there, but you want the listener to retain the information.
Yes.
And their way to do that is with a human to human connection.
Very true.
Yeah.
That is very, very, very true, Tiffany. And this is another question which I love asking narrators this. It's the power of saying no. And I'll give some context for this question. When I was talking with friends of mine, narrators, when I first started interviewing them on the show, this notion of saying no, it really broadened my understanding of the narration and voice acting world, because I knew nothing until earlier this year. And as we broke it down, there are going to be, in the voice acting narration world, books that we want to be a part of, like, oh, it's getting so good, it's getting a lot of praise, I want to be a part of this. But upon reading it, it's like, oh, this is something that I am not comfortable saying with. And sometimes you've been hired because the author values your talent and your skill. And it's this, when is the right time to say no? And I definitely think for voice actors and narrators, or anyone who works in the narration world, that this notion, this power of saying no is there, but it's a hesitancy of when to use it and where to use it. So Tiffany, I would like to hear your thoughts on the aspect of voice actors and narrators realizing they have the power to say no to projects, no matter what they are.
You are really good at this. Gosh, your questions are just really good. Okay. I think bottom line, we need to make choices that serve us and serve our clients, being if that's an indie author or an audiobook publisher or producer or whatever. And I don't want to take a project on if I don't think I'm the right voice for it, because I respect that creative work. And if I don't think I'm right for a project, even if it's being shoved at me, I'm not going to take it. But again, that's my morals, values system. And I have no problems like saying no. But I think the tricky part is you have to be confident as a narrator. We're talking about narrators. And you have to get away from that scarcity mindset. I think the scarcity mindset is what causes a lot of narrators to take jobs maybe they shouldn't be taking for whatever reason. I mean, even if it's a job they're uncomfortable. I just got a audition from a production company last night, and I say that I don't have any triggers, but this one had layer upon layer upon layer upon layer and more layers of triggers. I can't believe they fit them all in one book. And I'm like, I'm not gonna enjoy that. Like, I'm not gonna audition for that. You don't have to audition for everything that comes in your mailbox just because, like, I'm just starting as a narrator to get on rosters and things like that. So it's a big deal to start getting actual auditions from them. And so there's this feeling that you got to go for every job that you're given, or you're not going to have another opportunity. That's the scarcity mindset, right? You have to take this opportunity because you may not get another one. There's always another opportunity. There's always going to be another opportunity. So that's what yeah. Don't make decisions based on scarcity mindset, because that's when that'll trap you into saying yes when you should say no.
Yes, very, very true. And this also again brings up to what my friend also brought up, saying how for certain narrators that they're only being hired by either their cultural background or anything between, and it kind of then again pigeonholes them into that box of like, am I only being hired because I'm really good at my job as a narrator and the best fit for this book, or is it because of my cultural background, which I'm using that term as a very broad sense to cover every aspect because of that. And I again never really thought of that from an author and reader perspective. But it's like, oh shoot, then yeah, is that really, are you really hiring them for because of their talent, and their skill and expertise? Because it then goes back to this notion you brought up, Tiffany, which is this scarcity mindset. Like, we shouldn't have to jump on every project that's available because we think, oh, it's going to help build my brand. It all depends on what kind of narrator you want to be. That's why there are so many romance fantasy narrators.
And you need to be thinking about that too. You need to be thinking about, when I'm deciding to take a project or not, I'm always thinking about my brand, which is really just all that is how I'm presenting myself to potential clients, casting directors, indie authors.
Right.
Right. And and if you're continuing to get work, like if you're being pigeonholed, you got to ask yourself the right questions. I mean, and there's always things you can do to, if you don't want to be pigeonholed, there are things that you can do to expand your opportunities. But it's gonna take some reflection and some strategy and some work.
Yes.
That's what people want to do. Like, they do want to pigeonhole. And, what's wonderful about today is that, people from all different cultures, in the broad term, as you were speaking, there are more opportunities there. But there's also, there's also the issue of them getting pigeonholed for just that kind of work. So if you're somebody that is getting pigeonholed and you want to do more, there's more that you can do. I mean, that's where a good like business coach, like in the audiobook industry, like I work with Julie, that's where that can help, because you have like somebody that is like your mirror and somebody that you can, anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
Yes, very true, Tiffany. Very, very true. And now we're going to go into the rapid fire fan question part of the interview, which I have a good lineup. Okay. So the first rapid fire fan question is this: least favorite trope in fiction?
Oh God. My least favorite trope is probably like the reverse harem. Why choose? Like I don't have an issue with it. It's not my thing.
All right. Next one, there's a two-parter. Most overrated and underrated trope in fiction.
Overrated and underrated. I don't even know how to answer that. Overrated, underrated. I can't answer that. I think it just depends on the person. So, and I don't want to judge. Everybody's different. I'm pretty open. So yeah, sorry. That's what I got.
No problem. No problem. All right. This one is a narrator question. As a narrator, what is the most difficult scene between these two? An emotional scene or a conflict scene to narrate?
What is the most difficult? Again, I'm sorry, but I'm always like, I'm my friend calls me I'm a contrarian, so I don't always answer the way that I'm supposed to be answering. I don't find either of those challenging necessarily. I told you before, those are the things that I really like. I like
Right.
there. I like that emotional depth. So, and they can be equally challenging. So I love going there.
All right. All right. Next one. And I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts on this one. Out of the five senses, which as a narrator is the most difficult to bring to life?
God, you are so good at this. Okay. I'm gonna have to ponder that because I have this whole like I call my approach to narration a listener first approach. So I'm actually thinking about all of the senses when I'm narrating, like, and I'm trying to actually, as I'm crafting my new bio, I'm trying to find the words to describe this. Like Julie has said something along the lines of like, I'm painting the picture, the portrait with my words, my voice. And so I try to do that. Like it's the subtle, if I had an example here, I could show you, but it's, I don't know. Again, I guess I'm an instinct. I work on instinct and intuition, and I'm very like, I'm feeling. So I just envision myself being there. I mean, I think they're all equally challenging. But like if you're talking about smell, for example, and they're like one of the authors I work with, Kat Kenny, she talks a lot about food, and I love it. And you just imagine like that apple pie in front of you, and you just, in the way it smells, and you just emphasize certain words, and you use your pacing, and you talk about, I don't know, there's certain things you can do with your voice. For me, it's all instinctive, so it's not necessarily a technique. I can say do A, B, and C. It's just being in the moment and being present, and then you use your voice to, yeah. That is not a rapid fire answer. I'm sorry, but that's my answer.
No problem. No problem. All right. Here is another one. Ooh, okay. This is a new one.
Ooh,
This
okay.
viewer asks,
Okay.
out of the recent books that have been published this year, what is the one book you would love to do a narration for?
There was a book that I really, really wanted to do. And I early on reached out to the authors of this book, and I gave them a sample, like a 15-minute sample. And they wrote back and said it was beautiful. I'm quoting that my sample is beautiful, but they weren't ready to do an audiobook yet. Well, shortly after that, they got picked up by a big publisher. And so two bigger name narrators got to do that book. And I am telling you, even that scene that I did my sample in, the authors did character art and they launched it, and it was that exact scene. The narrators did a like a live record, like a recorded snippet of their narration over the summer, and it was put on the social media of this publisher. It was the same scene I did in my reach out sample. And I'm not saying that they did it because of me. I just picked a really good sample to demonstrate. But the funny thing is, it's like, I wanted to let it go because I was like, I don't usually get that invested in wanting to do a book because there's no guarantee. But for some reason, I got invested in that one, and then I try to forget it. And the reason I'm bringing it is because then the artwork is the same scene I auditioned with, and then the narrators do the same scene that I sent the sample in for. So, and that was Direwolf.
Ooh, okay.
Direbound. Sable Sorensen. That was the Direbound Sable Sorensen book.
Nice.
So, yeah. So that's the one. I'm like, I laugh. I'm like, I told my friend, I'm like, the narrators were just on social media and they did that exact same scene that I did. And I'm like, this book is like haunting me. And anyway, yeah.
Awesome. And kind of in that world, okay, this one's a little role play kind of question. So you've been offered a role in a multicast narration of one of your favorite books. And who in this multicast narration would be your top 3 that you would love to narrate with?
Gosh. My top 3 narrators?
Yes.
Okay. I want to narrate with like my narrator buddies. So like I want to do it with my friends. So like I've gotten to know a very young Scottish narrator named Aisha Asif, and she's in Scotland, and I love her. I would love to narrate with her. I have a friend in my narrator group, Tim Ratliff, and we're going to be doing our first duet epic fantasy trilogy together coming up soon. It's a hush hush project so far. I want to do something with Tim, and there's this wonderful Brit narrator, Lucy Woodcock. I would love to narrate with her. Yeah, I want to do it with all my buddies.
Nice. I know the feeling. I actually have on my Instagram a chat that I've made called the Narrator Portal. It's about 16 narrators that I've met over this last year alone. Luke Bromley, Ethan Gray, Sammy Rowe, Damian Knight, Daphne Winters, Keegan Bork, Heather Daniels, Brittany Wright, Mariana Almeida, voice by Jess, just her voice. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on her last name. Think it's Carmen. I greatly apologize if I mispronounce or forget anyone's name. Kyle Snyder is another one. Oh my gosh, but all these people are so incredible. Amber M is another one. Arcane. Courtney, that's her name. Courtney Feynman is another one. And Lauren Beck, and voiced by Hell. And of course, Christelle or Kessel, who I just met. All of these incredible narrators I've had a chance to work with on more than one occasion. Love working with them, and I've learned so much from them of, my own writing, of how to space out and keeping the narrators in mind, even not just for audiobooks or just for like snippets in general to help promote my work. It's been incredible, and I've learned so much from them, and I've taken away so much from them, which is incredible. Which now leads to our final 2 questions, Tiffany, of this amazing and very informative narrator interview. We've talked about a lot of important things, and you've brought up a lot of great points throughout this interview, all of whom could be used as follow-ups for other interviews or even other shows on my channel.
Oh, good.
With everything that we've touched and covered on, ultimately, what do you want people to take away from this interview about you as a narrator, as an individual, and what would be your pearl of wisdom you would like to instill upon others who would like to go into this industry?
Oh, well, just for myself, I want to use myself as an example for other creators. So I'm a very big connector and a collaborator, a supporter of other narrators and other creators, which you've heard me talk about this. So I want to empower, we'll just talk about narrators right now, but I'm a narrator talking to other narrators, but just, just like I said, own it. If you're doing the work, own it. Don't feel like an imposter. Just be confident. Be confident in who you are. Be willing to ask help when you need to be asking for help. What I said, you're especially in business, you're conducting experiments. Well, in performance too. It's all an experiment. It's all data. Experiment. How does that land? How did that work? Okay, this works great. I'll do that some more. This does not work great. So I'll take a different path, make a different choice. So I just, I in the past month, I've actually just organically, I think I've had 2 or 3 conversations with other narrators that were struggling with one thing or another. And I think it all came down to, they just need to own their process and who they are and be confident in that, be confident. Like if you feel like you need to be making more money, ask for more money. If you feel like you're ready to move forward in your career, like start reaching out to publishers and producers, get on those rosters. If you need help with that, if you need help with career strategy, like spend the money on the coaching. If you don't have the money, go take another job and earn money so that you can, learn more. Just your career is in your hands. And so I love being a cheerleader to my colleagues. So yeah, anybody that needs, like I said, if you need a pep talk, just DM me on Instagram or something and I'll give you a little pep talk.
Absolutely beautifully said, Tiffany. And with that, everyone, we conclude another amazing narrator interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. Want to give a huge thank you to Tiffany for coming on the show, making her official debut. Now, Tiffany, where can people find you on social media if they want to connect? And do you have any upcoming projects that will be released later this month or by the beginning of next year that people can look forward to?
So you can go on my website, tiffanyvanlandingham.com. I have a link tree at the top there, and that's all my socials. I primarily live on Instagram and then Threads at Till Tiffany, TILTIFFANY. That's me. I'm on TikTok too, but that's not my favorite platform because it's kind of a cluster over there. But anyway, and then projects coming up. I just released another project with author Kat Kinney called The Siren's Cursed Kiss. It's a cozy mystery and paranormal merman witch romance, and I love it. It's part of a series, her Everwood Falls series, but the books are standalone. And right now I have it just launched, so I have I have an 80-member review team, so there have a lot of my listener reviewers on that book right now. So yeah, I'm very proud of it. Kat was so excited. She said, well, I don't know, she said it was like a tour de force or something. Anyway, I'm proud of that one.
Nice. I'll link that all down below in the description of this video. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us for another amazing episode here on the channel. Make sure to go and follow Tiffany, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with all the episodes coming out later this month. And if you are looking for your next holiday read, Decimus, the Wolf of Rome is still available for pre-order. You can go to my website on wanderingscribe.com, or you can go to the link in my YouTube channel or the link on my Instagram to my Amazon author page to go and reserve a copy. And check out my other books there as well, from The Gathering, Amnita, Son of Persia, and Michael, Last Angel of Earth. Until next time, everyone, this has been The Wandering Scribe and The Wandering Quill, signing out. Wish you all a wonderful afternoon wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you all in the next episode. Happy holidays, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day.